Hey y'all, my name is Letty, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey these last few months with photography, things that I've been doing that I feel like have really helped me to learn and improve, things that I'm still doing today. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with y'all. And yeah, let's jump right into it. So I'd actually been interested in photography for quite some time, maybe about a decade ago. So before I'd even actually started my photography journey. Throughout the years, I was drawn to capturing places and people and moments. I loved composing photos and spotting cool shots, but I only ever used my phone to do it. I guess I had the mistaken belief that real cameras were for professional photographers, and I wasn't one of them. I was also probably a little intimidated by how expensive photography seemed to be. So I kind of admired from afar for a while until eventually I found my dad's old film camera. So since then, there have been a few standout things that have really helped me along in my journey of learning photography. Number one is trying out both film and digital. This might sound crazy, I know, but just hear me out for a second. Around the same time that I found my dad's old film camera, I had just purchased a pretty cheap digital camera for a trip that I was doing to Spain to go visit my family. I wanted to take pictures and I wanted to venture away from my phone and try to get some better quality images. And I found the Lumix GX85. At the time, I paid $500, I think, for the camera and 2 kit lenses. The funny thing is, it wasn't even really my decision to buy this camera. My partner actually did a bunch of research at the time in preparation for this trip and came across this camera, and so we decided to get it. But anyway, so I've been using both my Canon A1 and my GX85 throughout the learning process. Right off the bat, I had read that learning on digital would be much more forgiving in the sense that you get the immediate feedback. So you dial in your settings, you take a shot, and you immediately see what happened. And you can find out what went wrong, how to fix it. So in that sense, it's a bit easier. So for a long time, I practiced exposure settings on the GX85. So, learning the exposure triangle, how the 3 elements interact, ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. And then as I felt more comfortable outside of just a full auto mode, I brought that over to film. I was able to at least have somewhat of a foundation, I guess, to where I didn't feel completely lost with film. And then also from the film side, to maintain that sort of mentality of like intentionality, slowing down and focusing and breathing. And I think that's something really wonderful that I've been learning by shooting film, that I've been able to bring to digital and make digital have that same sort of magical feeling of film. I don't know if that's cheesy, but it also reminded me of when I was learning to play guitar. I actually kind of learned on both acoustic and electric simultaneously. And I know that a lot of other people have done that. And I think it's interesting to be able to take concepts from one and bring back to the other. So, for anybody who plays guitar, you'll know beginner learning on the electric is a lot more forgiving on your fingertips, right? The strings are much thinner. It's easier to learn bar chords and things like that. So I found myself leaning towards electric for a while. Once I developed a little bit of like strength and technique, I could bring that over to the acoustic and not be as frustrated over on that side. Continue developing those skills in different ways on the acoustic. I don't think that that was a conscious comparison that I made when learning photography, but I did find it interesting thinking back that I'd done that with another creative pursuit. Number 2 is using different camera modes. So when I first started, I did use program mode on my digital. I wanted to just kind of get a feel for the camera and, play around, take some pictures and have fun. But I very quickly realized that it wasn't going to teach me, how to create a proper exposure. And so I ended up moving more towards manual. Manual was a little bit intimidating for sure, but on digital it was nice because you do have that immediate feedback. But then what I also started doing was I moved towards the priority modes. So I had aperture priority and shutter priority. I know that all film cameras won't have this, I think. I'm lucky that the Canon A1 does have the priority modes. So for film, I've been using aperture priority, shutter priority. So I'll set aperture priority and I'll focus on trying out different apertures. And then I'll observe what the camera thinks the proper shutter speed should be for the aperture that I selected. And I'll kind of make mental notes of that, right? And that's been a way for me to get more intuitive about the relationship between the different like elements of the triangle. And then likewise for shutter priority, right? Just observing what the camera thinks the other component should be, and just trying to form like associations and I guess like recognize certain patterns. So that's been super helpful for me. And correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like from what I've been learning, there isn't necessarily a correct way to shoot. Probably most photographers would say like you don't want to shoot in program mode because you want some level of control over your settings so you can actually dial in what the image is going to look like. But the difference between the priority modes and full manual kind of depends on what you need out of a certain picture and maybe like what the environment conditions are in that moment. So yeah, I've really been enjoying getting exposed to I've really been enjoying let's do it. So yeah, I've really been enjoying practicing with all three of the modes. Number 3 is keeping a notebook. Something that I started doing with film particularly, for some of the reasons that I've already mentioned, is writing down the specific settings that I use for a picture. I would write down some brief description of what the picture is and then aperture and shutter speed. I should check myself. I was not doing this for every single picture that I took. You know, a lot of times I was forgetting to do it. For a while, I was keeping track of this in a notes app, and I found that I wasn't as likely to go into my notes app to write these things down. So I've since bought a notebook, and I'm hoping that having something physical where I can actually write into it will make me a bit more inclined to do it, because I do really love actually writing. So I'll let y'all know how that goes. But anyway, reason for this is, you know, I'm gonna forget what settings I use. By the time I finish the roll, get it developed, see the pictures, there's no way I'm gonna remember. And so writing it down and then receiving my scans and being able to say, okay, this picture could have looked a little bit better. So what were the settings? All right, how could I do that better next time? Or vice versa, right? Maybe there's a picture that came out amazing. I'm like, man, I need to remember how I did that so I can replicate that. And so yeah, it's just like a part of the learning process. And like I said, on digital, you know, the immediate feedback kind of makes this like not really necessary. You could maybe still get some benefit from it, because I do feel like writing things out allows your brain to like really process stuff more than just like visually. But yeah, with film, I do feel like it's been super helpful, and I'm hoping to utilize this notebook a lot more now that I have it. I have also been enjoying writing down things that I learn about photography in general. So any like important concepts or interesting facts or details, or even if I get ideas for things that I might want to photograph, then yeah, I'll write that down. You know, sometimes it goes in my phone in a notes app. Yeah, I've been trying to be better about writing in a notebook. I do feel like it helps me to learn better. Number 4 is carrying my camera with me everywhere, or having it somewhere that I can see it constantly at home. The idea behind this one I also got from my guitar playing, kind of similarly to the first point in the video. When I was learning to play guitar, I'd heard from a bunch of people that you want to make sure that your guitar is out somewhere where you're going to see it, not in a closet, not in a case, like not in the guest room, right? Like you want it to be in the room of the house that you spend the most time in, so it's just staring at you, just begging to be played. When I'm at home, my camera is sitting at my desk right next to me. If I move to a different room, I take it with me. And this also has been cool for being able to capture pictures of my dog, Andy. She is just the cutest and she does the silliest things. And so having my camera with me and being able to take a picture in moments like that has been super fun. As far as carrying the camera with me everywhere, I have to admit I have not been as good about that one as I want to be. The reason why I don't do it as much, I think, is really just self-consciousness. Like I'm just embarrassed to have my camera with me because I've got imposter syndrome or whatever. But I do want to work on that because, you know, of course, the more that you take pictures, the better that your picture taking ability is going to be, right? It's a great way to practice, you know, photography in general, but obviously it's also a great way to practice building confidence. So Yeah, definitely looking forward to working on this one a bit more this year. Number 5 is learning resources. There are a ton of online resources that I have used to varying degrees to learn photography. YouTube is such a great one because there's so many different types of content even within photography that have allowed me to learn a lot of different things. So of course you have creators that focus on tutorials, right? And teaching you how to use your camera settings or how to load film into your film camera. But then you also have creators who are making like POV videos where they're just going out and spending, a day shooting while recording with their GoPro. You're able to see why they make certain decisions, what they go towards, like what are the elements that they're looking for. Learning opportunities there too, and it's also just a fun thing to watch. Like I love watching those POV videos. And then you also have, photographers just doing like super creative stuff in general. So YouTube has been wonderful in that sense. And then Instagram, of course, so many wonderful photographers on there as well. I do follow a mix, I think, of digital and film, but I do gravitate towards film a lot. I think that might be the way that I end up leaning as I grow in my photography journey, but we'll see. I guess I can't really make that decision right now. I will say the next year, I do want to try to also get into photography books because like I mentioned with writing, like I love like physical copies. I've been kind of trying to save money, so I haven't been able to splurge on books, but I would love to purchase photography books and use that as part of my learning resources as well. All right, number 6, finding inspiration in other forms of art. I feel like the arts are so interconnected that it makes sense to draw inspiration from different types. For me personally, I've always been inspired by movies, music, books, physical art forms, everything. Before I really got into photography, I remember I'd be watching, I still do this, but I'd be watching a movie and just like blurt out like, damn, that's a cool shot. And, irritate whoever I was watching the movie with, of course. But, there's just certain moments in different art forms that stand out to you and might cause an impact or evoke a certain emotion. I think music is a great example, the way that it can create certain emotions within us. Like you'll hear people say like, I listened to this album, which is a full divorce album, and I've never even been in a relationship and they had me feeling all the feelings, right? Like, I think that's the cool thing about art is how deeply personal it can be and how much it can impact us. And those themes seem to be pretty common across all art forms. So to me, it makes sense to draw inspiration from different places. I actually did this in a recent video. I read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley for the first time last October, and I loved it. It made me feel so many things that I didn't think it would because I didn't really know a lot about the Frankenstein story, and I thought it was going to be like a scary story, but it had so many interesting themes and just deeply human emotions. And so I was left just like in my feels and just thinking about this story. And I thought it could be a cool idea to use it for my photography. So I went out one day into the woods and decided to shoot some pictures inspired by the themes of Frankenstein. And it was super fun. It was such a fun project because I had a specific purpose for that project. I had just read the book, so I had all of that stuff present, and I was able to go out and try to find things like in my surroundings that could make for a photograph that would describe the things I felt when reading Frankenstein. It was like challenging and fun, and I loved doing that. If anyone's interested, I'll leave a link to that up here somewhere. And yeah, I want to keep doing that. I have a couple of videos coming up in the next few months that are doing just that with other sources of inspiration. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it, and I'm very excited to do some more of it this year. Testing, testing.